budget, and the budget needs balancing. I have a checkbook, I balance it every month. Here's the NIH chart. I'm going to step in front of this. These are billions of dollars. This is NIH's budget for the last 6 years. $178,377,000,000. This is how much of it was spent for pulmonary fibrosis research. 157 million out of 178 billion. So we're at 0.88%. We're struggling real hard, but we're almost to 1%. There was something, as you all know about the recession, because we're all living with that. The American Recovery and Reinvestment Act is called, typically in the press, it's called the stimulus bill. So there's some surprise extra money came in here in the stimulus, where we got a bonus $24 million in those 2 years. That's one-time money, it's never coming back. We got 24.4 million out of the 10.4 billion that NIH got in the stimulus. Congressman Baird talks frequently about the lethality of this disease. The fact that we have such a high death rate, and that it affects so many, about 40,000 deaths a year. That's the same number that dies from breast cancer. Breast cancer gets 10 times the research money that pulmonary fibrosis gets. 2 of my 3 sisters are breast cancer survivors, so I'm not advocating taking a nickel away from breast cancer research. But when you have a $30 billion a year budget, roughly, at NIH, how can you justify, that's the next legislative gambit that's taking place. Representatives from NIH are being called to Capitol Hill to testify at a hearing to say, tell me why you can only spend $28 million a year on a disease that kills 40,000 people a year. The net result of that, whether or not the bill passes, the fact that Congress is now asking those kinds of questions of the folks at NIH means that next year's appropriation, you watch, the number's going to go up for pulmonary fibrosis research because the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I threw this slide in, it's called my casualty list, because Congress runs in 2-year cycles. I'm sure you're all excited about the fact there's going to be an election in November. We all have to put up with the ads and the commercials between now and then. But next November, when this session of Congress ends with the election, people are going to lose. Right? As of today, 13 of the current co-sponsors for the House bill, HR 2505, have already either announced their resignation or they're retiring or they've taken an appointment in a different job. We've already lost 15% of our current co-sponsors. We are likely to lose, just mathematically speaking, another 15% on November 6th on election day. Some of the incumbents will be defeated. And I know the way to do it would probably say they should all be defeated. That's a different conversation. We work really hard to get these people, and we need to pass the legislation so we don't have to start over. January of 2013, when the new Congress sits, all the bills that were not passed in 2012 die. And so you start over from 0 in January of 2013. We will do that if we need to, happy to do that if we need to, but that's why there's pressure from people like me on groups like this to get angry, get involved, take action now because we want to pass this bill in 2012. Congratulations, Virginia, you've got 2 co-sponsors to the bill. That's the good news. The bad news is you got 13 members of Congress from Virginia. So we're the other 11. Once again, I mentioned thank you messages before. Sending a note or an email to Representative Connolly or Representative Moran thanking them for their support is an important thing to do. My mother taught me I never say thank you often enough. Here's the rest of your group. Senators Webb and Warner, Eric Cantor, and Bobby Scott and Randy Forbes are all Richmond area. I don't know how far any of you guys drive to get here today. Those three congressmen are underlined because they're typically, they'll be one of your representatives. Mr. Griffin, Morgan Griffin, has a little asterisk next to his name in the designation ENC. That's the Energy and Commerce Committee where the bill sits today. All bills are introduced in Congress, they get sent to a committee. Frank Wolf is listed with Approps after his name because he's on the Appropriations Committee. If we get the bill out of Energy and Commerce, when we get the bill, I should say, it will go to Appropriations next, before it goes to the floor for a House vote. The political problem that I have today, for those of you who are from Eric Cantor's district, Mr. Cantor is also the majority leader of the House, and he has taken a political stance saying that he has decided, because if a health care related bill succeeded in passing in the 112th Congress, that would be bad for Republicans and good for President Obama. Therefore, he has told the Republican conference, the members, all the members of the Republican Party, that he's not going to allow any health care legislation onto the floor, 4 of us. So even if we had 300, there's 435 members of the House. If we had 400 of them, Eric Cantor wouldn't let it up for a vote. And he has the power to do that. One guy countermands everybody else. So it's particularly important to get to Mr. Cantor and ask him for his support for this legislation. He's a highly educated man. He's also a highly political man. And he's letting his politics trump his intellect right now. But I think we can overcome that. I have a sheet down here on this table. If any of you are looking for mailing addresses or telephone numbers, you can pick one of these up when we're done.
You want to pass on that?
There's only 25 of them, Russell, so you're welcome to take them.
Husband and wife meetings there. Let's go with that.
Each of these gentlemen has a website. And if you go to the website of any of the members of the Virginia congressional delegation, or indeed any member of Congress at all, there's a button on every website that says, send me a message. Go ahead.
I've tried that in the recent past, and it knows my zip code and says, you're not in my district, thank you, and have a nice day.
Yeah.
You can't even submit anything.
Some of them are set up that way, yes.
Okay.
I once worked for a congressman from California. That's where I got my first legislative experience. I worked with Pete McCloskey, a Republican from San Mateo County, California. The typical congressman gets between 300 and 500 letters and or emails a day. On top of that, they probably get between 100 and 200 telephone calls a day from a constituent saying, I want you to vote this way on that bill. They're dealing with it, and they have, the typical congressman's office probably has 14 people on their staff. By sheer volume, they have to exclude non-constituents. But we send email messages to all 435 through something called Hot Box, which I'll get to in a second on another slide. You can certainly write U.S. mail letters to congressmen and senators who are not your congressman or your senator. You can go to the United States House of Representatives website, listed way up there at the top, www.house.gov/representatives/find. And by putting in your mailing address or your zip code, you can find your congressman or your senator. So I just put in the Richmond zip code up there in the search box. What is it? 21, I can't even read it that close, 21220. And it came up with Cantor and Bobby Scott. and you put in your street address, and it'll tell you which one of those guys is your congressman. Same thing for the senator. For senators, it's a little easier. You choose a state, you choose one of the two senators. You can choose class. Every two senators for every state, one of them will be a senior and one of them will be junior. The easiest way to go, of course, is go to our website, which is Pulmonary Fibrosis Advocates, or pfadvocates.org. You'll see this button on the very first page, right? Congress. And by pushing that button, it launches this pop-box software where you only put in your zip code, and then you can write a message to your representative. Go straight to them. The message on the right is very important. Write, repeat. Email, repeat. Call, repeat. Go visit them, repeat. What they are counting on is that you're going to write one letter, or you're going to make one phone call, or you're going to send one email. And they'll smile and they'll be very polite. They're very well trained, these young people that work for these offices. But they know 99.9% of the time, you're never coming back again. Because that's the truth of it. You're never congressional office.
What's our site?
pfadvocates.org.
Okay.
PF for Pulmonary Fibrosis Advocates.org. The repetition is what drives success. Now, since 2008, when I started working on this legislation, I now have a reputation on the Hill. I mean, I can be walking down the hall and they go, oh my God, here comes the pulmonary fibrosis guy again. Because they know I'm not going to give up. They schedule meetings because they might as well have the meeting and get it over with, because I'm going to be relentless until they give me the meeting. And that's the way you have to be. So it's